Welcome again here in the Advanced Room at XM Live, where we stream on 3 different channels, 8 hours every single day. We are at the second hour with Curtin, the Wall Street coach. And we talked in the first hour about many topics, why traders need a coach, what is driving us often unconsciously, how our relationship with money has an influence on the track record. And in the end of the hour, we started to talk about intuition, fear, and greed, or intuitions and feelings. And I thought this is very, very exciting. So I would love to continue a little bit about that. What is the difference between intuition and feelings?
Well, intuition isn't going to necessarily be a feeling that is coming from your intellect. It doesn't mean it's not intellectual, but it's coming from a collection of knowledge that often is kind of below your neck, sort of your body. Often those who are very connected to their intuition will physically feel a sensation that happens during certain variables. So I would say, if you can, just start. My experience, a lot of traders are not connected even to their body, even to how they feel, because majority are men, and most men have been discouraged from being a feeler of their feelings. Most men have been kind of, made to feel ashamed if they had feelings in the first place. The only feeling that ever seems to be allowed for men in the cultures are anger. But they're not allowed to feel sad. They're not allowed to feel despondent. They're not allowed to feel confused. It's like a lot of these are feelings that men have been kind of told by their culture they're not allowed to have. So in my experience, a lot of men are sort of disconnected from how they feel, thus also cutting themselves off from their intuition. And so what I would always say is start with becoming a person who isn't always in their head all the time. Once in a while, not in the middle of a trading day if you're just starting out, but 5 minutes before you start trading, an hour after you finish, just pause. And I like to use the metaphor of take that elevator down from your head into your body and just check in. How do I feel? Do I have tension in my shoulders? Is my belly all jacked up? Do I have tension in my back or hips? Just start to feel what it feels like in your body. And then you find yourself eventually starting to notice how you emotionally feel also in your body. Those are steps that begin the process of having a relationship with yourself.
Yes. So I agree. This is for men often not very easy. That brings a follow-up question. Are women the better traders?
Yes. Yes, across the board. There's countless studies that show women are better traders. And part of that, I have no doubt, is because women are not having their ego as tied to their P&L, and they are going to be more comfortable with their feelings and their intuition.
Amazing. I heard that often, and of course, I can't disagree because numbers speaks for themselves. So,
Like, and even John Coates, his amazing book I read 13 years ago, 12 years ago, called The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. He was a derivatives trader at Goldman Sachs, and he watched himself get hijacked by this incredible, really unhealthy way of in the trading room, how he was responding. He watched his colleagues. He was like, we're being hijacked by this monster. Like, what happens to us? And so in the end, he wound up becoming a neuroscientist, and that's what his book is all about, the biology of boom and bust. It is physiological. And this is what most traders don't realize. You guys are a physiological machine. The responses that are happening physiologically, you don't have control over. You're not in charge of. Your nervous system is in charge of it. Your biology is in charge of it. And one of the things Coates really did see, and this is part of why his study was done with all male traders, was that if a trader's and this is why I offered this. I actually offer biomarkers for traders because I know their physiology is going to have an impact on their trading. And what he showed was that if testosterone levels weren't at a certain level within a trader in the morning, then they're not going to succeed that day as a trader. So profitability was linked to certain levels of testosterone. And as you can imagine, if you have a certain level of success in the middle of your trading day, guess what gets lifted up? Here's testosterone. And that is often when we find a trader starts to feel like he's a master of the universe. He can do no wrong. And that is when a trader will suddenly succumb and they can't stop themselves because biologically they have a cocktail of testosterone making them feel invincible. This is why it's so important to pause after you've had success so that your runaway train of testosterone doesn't take you into a brick wall. The same is true for losses. You are losing testosterone when you have a loss, and your whole system is going to go into disarray. And that's part of what Coates is talking about. He feels that when we have a bust in the markets, it's a complete what was COVID called again when it was called what was COVID and any kind of huge outspread? What's that called?
And now I also forget, and not a virus, and
a virus.
epidemic.
It's a virus. And what Coates is saying is traders will catch the virus from other traders. They don't have to be in the room. The market will pick up on this virus of, oh my God, it's falling. Oh my God, it's falling. And all the traders around the world will all be infected by the virus of panic, fear, selling. And that's why Coates is like, our economic system globally is tied to the physiology of the traders across the world. And that's why it's so important for them to be aware. And I have a partnership with a lab company, actually, to a lot of my traders I will send and to go get 82 biomarkers checked, because if your levels aren't right, that is already affecting you. Traders need to see themselves as Olympians. You are in the most competitive game in the world with the smartest people and the smartest machines in the world. You can't come in hungover. You can't come in here, with McDonald's as your main meal. Like, you have to see yourself as an athlete that has to keep this whole system as healthy as possible so you don't have these things hijacking you.
Yes. Your analogy that you're doing, it's often what I also say. I also say, in Europe, we play mostly soccer, football, we call it here. And when you start, you're playing against your fellow in the regional league. And then when you get better, you go into the national league. And if you get extremely good, you go into the international league. But you play always against people on the same level, more or less. But on Wall Street, everybody plays at the same league. So you play immediately in the Champions League. And to think that you can, just wake up in the morning and do something and make money is an illusion. You're playing against the best in the world.
Agree. 100%. 100%. And but also, like, if you get your stuff together, that you get to even play in that world is like an incredible miracle. But prepare accordingly. prepare accordingly. Get yourself positioned with how the best of you can be so that you do stand a chance. The fact that this is happening for any trader is sort of a testament to what is available to them. But you've got to get your ducks in a row. You have to take it seriously, and you have to give yourself the best opportunity. Even with all that, it's still going to be the hardest game you've ever played. But you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you aren't treating this vehicle of yours well. I get my oil changed on the dot every time there's 5,000 miles because I want my car to last. You want yourself to last in this game, you're going to have to make sure you are taking good care of this vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is so important. And I tell you, I'm self-employed since 2012. I'm a full-time trader since 13 years. And I can tell you, I'm still, my biggest struggle until today is what you mentioned before with this, to be on the right level. And again, still, if I am making big winners, I feel like I'm a genius of the world. Mm-hmm. And if I start to lose, I feel like I lost it totally. And maybe there was something, I was lucky for 13 years and now I just don't have it anymore. And to go back into this balance, I think this is my personal biggest struggle every single day. And I feel like because there needs to be a balance between humility and confidence.
Agree.
And those two things seems contradictory because if you have confidence, you don't want to be with humility and otherwise, but you need to have both. So you need humility to understand you made a mistake and go immediately out, but you also need a lot of confidence to make meaningful bets. And this balance, oh, wow, I'm struggling until today. And I always have problems with people that tell me, I'm already 10 years a trader. It became so easy. It's almost boring for me. I can't believe this is boring and easy because I feel like this balance to get it back again. So maybe it's only me. I don't know, but I'm still struggling with this.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a couple of things, and if with your permission, I can ask you some questions if you'd like.
Yes.
But first of all, I just want to say there is a razor's edge between confidence and hubris, right? And there's a razor's edge with that sense of humility and maybe not fully believing in oneself, right? So these are tricky, at least for the beginning stages of investigating them. But if one has a proven strategy, these are big ifs, if one has a proper risk profile, then if that isn't you should be scared if your risk is inappropriate. You should be questioning yourself if you don't really know what you're doing. But if these things are not present, then it becomes, is my sense of value, my sense of feeling like I'm enough tied to making mistakes? Do I feel like if I make a mistake, I don't have that same respect for myself? Like, ultimately, if we are externally driven, this becomes a dicier navigation. And this is part of what, I would say perhaps is a place to look. What happens on days when maybe things don't go perfectly well for you, but you still know you did the best you could do? What happens on those days for you?
In those days, I'm quite okay today, I must say. Again, I have my stop losses, get stopped out, I don't have a problem. I must say I'm a swing trader, so obviously I'm not a day trader. Yep. So I have positions open for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and as a swing trader, I would say a day trader tries to have at least 3-4 winning days and maybe 1-2 losing days per week, and then every week he has a profitable P&L over the week. As a swing trader, it's not evenly distributed. That's at least my experience, not only with me, but with a lot of fellow traders also. So I would say my big profits are coming 2-3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Everything else is a little bit losing, a little bit winning, a little bit losing, a little bit winning. But like 2-3 times, I call them jackpot trades. That, that really, I make the salary.
Yeah, totally.
And of course, the struggle starts if those jackpot trades don't appear fast.
Yeah, exactly. But you probably, I presume, have the data of the last 12 years.
Yes.
And so is there a pattern that you can look for in those past years that indicates were there opportunities that you didn't take, regardless of why, that you could have taken? And I would say that would be worth doing some exploring on. If let's say there was one where you're like, wow, that I could have taken, but I didn't. How come? How come? Was it because I wasn't sure of this strategy? Was it because I was afraid of losing this money? Like, investigate the places and also ask yourself, how often should this strategy work? Is 2 or 3 times a year enough for you? Again, what your metric are might be different than another trader. But if you suspect I could have more, but it's because I feel uncomfortable taking that risk, one has to look at, is the risk appropriate, or is it your own relationship to risk that has to be reviewed?
Yeah, so I would say there was 1 year, by the way, I lost money, and I think this was in 2017. I lost about 9%. And the interesting thing is, I traded based on my trading strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But those jackpot trades, they just didn't come for the whole year. And so I was minus 9% at the end of the year. It's when and when I went back, of course, there is always opportunity that I missed. You never can catch everything. I don't have a problem with that. But what I realized then, as I'm trading mostly Forex, currencies, they move often in a sideways markets, but when they start trending, they trend a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened in this year, they just didn't trend. Like monetary policy, they were just flat. Everything was on autopilot. The stock markets went up every month, 0.5%, but steadily. And I always saw breakouts. So you have this range, these sideways markets, and I wanted to trade. So you see those breakouts, and it's like, okay, now a trend starts, right?
Let's pause there, though. You wanted to trade.
Yes.
And that is human. It's understandable. And wanting to trade when it isn't what you trade is the place that one has to be honest with themselves about. And it happens to so many traders, but that is part of the cost that one has to be with. I wanted to trade because I don't like sitting still, because it's uncomfortable to not have it be green. Those are things that one has to navigate. What is underneath that? What is the inability to be still? Where is that coming from? Likely not feeling safe with being still for most of us, right? Ultimately, it's going to come down to safety a lot of times. So that's when we want to explore what And where is the story that tells us having to take action keeps us safer, when sometimes inaction actually will keep us safer. But again, it could be an old story.
Yeah.
And this is for everybody. This is not just for you. This is the place where, oh, I'm attached to a red year, a green year, or a green quarter. But we hear all the time there are traders who are just not going to have a good year no matter what, because it's not their strategy. It's not there. And maybe that time you're seeing what's happening. You're like, I'm probably not going to get the trades I want. So is this a year for me to start to review all of the previous years? Is this a year for me to learn a new strategy? Is this a year for me to go get a new hobby, be challenged in other ways, and then come back when the market's doing what I wanted to?
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I had to, again, at the time in this year, you know, you want to make those jackpot trades, and so if you don't trade, there will be no jackpot trades also. So I don't have a problem not to trade 1 month, but then when it starts to be 6 months or so, the brain, you see a sideways market, and sideways markets, they're never, mathematical sideways markets. So you always have like those small breakouts on the upside or on the downside, and your brain tells, okay, that's it. Now we start to trend, go in. But what I had to realize, so what I learned, by the way, in this year is I had to realize, okay, if there is no fundamental change, okay, monetary policy didn't change, fiscal policy didn't change, why should there be now a breakout, right? So this is more likely a false breakout, but I wished that it is a breakout, and so I traded it.
I get it. That happens all the time for so many traders. And the key is just beginning to notice, okay, what was motivating me was maybe adventure for you, maybe challenge, maybe efficacy, maybe you were bored. Like that is the boredom that often will have a trading when they shouldn't be, because they just want to be in it. They want to be with their colleagues. They want to be with what's happening in the Discord room. And it's human. But if you have connections for community outside of your trading, you'll probably be less tempted to be in the tribe that is going against what your real strategy is. So that's why it's important to just see, oh, if I'm not getting the majority of my needs met on a day-to-day basis in my relationships, in my personal life, I am going to take it with me into trying to get it met in my trading, even invisibly to myself. Because we have human needs are our oxygen. If we don't get our oxygen met, we're going to grab anything we can to push on it and get some oxygen in our lungs. That's why lifeguards are trained to approach a drowning man in twos, because they know one of them is going down. And so traders have to see themselves as potentially a drowning man or woman. And if you guys get your oxygen outside of your trading, you will less likely start to seek it out in your trading, where it becomes very costly.
So what would you say is oxygen? Is it friends outside? Is it communication with other people? Is it physically also be fit and making sport? What is our oxygens?
All of the above. And each of us have different ones. Some of what you mentioned are some of them. I'm going to give you this link right here that you can, share with your viewers. That link will take you to a universal needs list. It'll get you, we'll email it to you. But the list includes things such as community, connection, to see and be seen, to be heard, self-respect, respect for yourself, respect from other people. You're having a sense of challenge, having a sense of adventure. There is a long list. I learned about these needs from Marshall Rosenberg. He's a creator of a language called nonviolent communication. And he talks about these are needs all of us have: freedom, security. These are all needs. And we can have a need for adventure and a need for security. And those could feel sometimes like, well, I want some adventure, but I also want security. It's okay. The key is you aren't going to necessarily get everything met every day, but you do have to understand what are the non-negotiables for you. So I'm an entrepreneur, right? Freedom is a non-negotiable. That's why I worked for myself for almost 20 years, right? Why? Because I knew I needed to have my need for freedom met. I suspect a lot of traders that are retail day traders, they also have that need. But they probably also have the need for security. So you're going to have to give and take a little bit for you to get both of those needs met. But being conscious of them is the first step. And I will say all the time to traders, if you're having feelings like frustration, anger, disappointment, apathy, confusion, upset, sadness, that is a flag that you're not getting needs met. If you have feelings like joy, peace, ease, comfort, those are flags that you are getting needs met. And the key is to understand what your basic needs are. Then you begin to become a better steward of them. How can you get your needs met if you don't even know what they are in the first place? You have to know what they are.
How do you find out?
Sign up for my list. I that latest link, and that list literally puts all the needs in front of traders so they can look at it and do a check-in. Like, hey, what ones do I have? There's often traders who come into trading and they have need for security, and they act as if, oh, well, the market's just going to meet my need for security. And that we see a lot with beginners who think they can just come in and ask the market for what they want and walk out the door with it. That is not going to meet their need for security. And then they pay a price and they get their need for security met even less.
That's, I think, why, beginner traders in the retail sector, they're often starting, and after 3 months, they're already out again because probably they didn't got their needs satisfied. So sometimes, they don't have money. I always say that's the worst thing to start trading if you don't have money and you think the markets will give it to you.
Totally. But that is part of, unfortunately, how some of trading is positioned. They're getting sucked into the easy money philosophy. And look, there's a lot of people who can sell you on the easy everything because we all want things to be easy. It's human nature to have it be easy. But you have to ask yourself, if the smartest guys in the world are struggling in this business, it may not be so easy.
Yes, that's what I also think. I think like I'm not that I'm the smartest person in the world, but I do this for 13 years. That's probably above average from my experience, and it's still very hard. How can a guy on Instagram that is doing this just 2 years say it's so easy for him? It's probably something is fishy there.
They're selling a course. And for them, they're making their money, not on their trading, but on their courses.
It's that's so true. And another problem that I have, and I think probably also many other traders have, is because I'm a swing trader, so Sunday is my hardest working day. It's because markets are closed and I research the markets. I look all the news that will be happening. I make all kind of, game plans. If this is happening, then I trade like this. If that is happening, I put out all kind of scenarios. I create trading ideas, and as I still have a passion for the markets, I'm waiting for the market to open on Monday morning. And the first thing I want to do, I want to put my ideas directly to plan. And, I want to get active. And often what happens often is I trade too early. I'm not waiting for my signals really to crystallize in the markets. I do it premature. And then, of course, I have a loss. Maybe the second, third time, it will be a profit when the second or third time I go in, but I could maximize my profit. So what do you think, what could help here to fix that, let's say?
I would say, see if you can, again, identify the need that is behind it, right? You want to be in the action. You want to get your trade going. And what you've noticed is that it's not best to be the first one in on Monday mornings. So it could be that you're bored. Could be that you're not having enough of a community around you to even pull it apart. Like, I really know I shouldn't trade now, but it's hard waiting. Even if you have a buddy who's like, yeah, I know, it's really annoying, then you got a community of like, we know we need to wait this out. But now we're with a little tribe of guys that are all waiting together. It is understandable that you want to be in action, but how do you get that need for perhaps, being part of the world of traders? How do you get that met outside of trading so that you don't have to get it met that Monday morning? If you know that's cutting into your profits, I would say start to try to get more of your needs met. Maybe you need to just make Monday not a trading day. Like, put in parameters to, if you're going on a diet, you don't fill your house with donuts. Put in place these kind of boundaries to protect yourself, from that temptation, so that you have these rules when you're not tempted to be more disciplined when it's going to be harder to be disciplined.
Yeah, I think that's true. Look, I put in a rule. I have a saying for myself, and I use it also here at XM Live very often: never trust a Monday morning move. And this is like a saying of mine. And so Monday morning, I never trade. Like, I forbid myself to open a trade. But yeah, so it helps a little bit, but that makes, okay, in the afternoon I'm allowed. So, then the urge comes just in the afternoon. And also then I have to be disciplined enough not too premature to enter. And then,
but I don't think it's discipline. I think it's about getting clear on what is happening that is putting you in temptation's way. I would start to do an inquiry of, is it being still that's uncomfortable for you?
Yeah, it's interesting.
That would be the inquiry, because discipline, I think, is tricky. I think when we aren't quote unquote disciplined, it's because we haven't perhaps really reflected on the action and the payoffs that those actions give us, which sometimes is just us not having to be with the hard to be with feeling of something that makes us uncomfortable. Stillness, too, sometimes is hard for us because our work ethic or our vigilance, that's that assessment that I love so much. I give those to traders because it's often a metric that shows, like, some traders need to, there's a saying that says, don't just stand there, do something. And if you're a trader who grew up with that in school with your parents, that work ethic, you don't know how to be still. And sometimes a trader needs to hear, don't just do something, stand there. And if that makes a trader uncomfortable, then your issue is with stillness, not discipline.
Yes, that's very good what you're saying. So I think, and viewer, please listen here, because that's not something only about me. I know that many other deal with the same struggles here. By the way, viewers, if you have something you struggle with, you can bring it up here. I know that one of the most questions that I get in my when I'm teaching, and I teach a lot about trading, is people eventually come to me and say, I'm doing okay with my entries, but my exits are a problem. How do I get out of a trade? And I must say, as a swing trader for me, when I hold a trade 2 or 3 months, so I catch a trend and the trend goes 3 months in my direction, I almost get married to the trade, because I feel proud of it also. I don't want to let it go. It's like part of me it becomes. And to close it, it's often much harder than to open it.
Yep, makes total sense. And again, that is potentially, that need for being right, that need for respect, that need for, being competent at something, which is human. We want to feel seen. We want to feel a sense of accomplishment. And the market isn't an inexpensive place to get these needs met. So we have to look at, I get a boost of confidence in myself or self-esteem or external sense of validation, and just notice it. Oh, isn't that fascinating? I feel good about myself. I feel smart. I feel like I saw that. And that is why I want to hold on to this trade, not because it's in my best account's best interest. It's because it gave me a feeling of being seen and acknowledged and smart. We have that need, but we have to realize that the market isn't the place to get that need met. So go, you get to work with traders who maybe aren't even close to as sophisticated as you are. And then that allows you to be like, wow, I get to be a contribution of people that don't know this, or this. And that can fill the cup so that you don't necessarily stay married to a trade.
Mm-hmm. And many traders, they have the opposite than what I have. They have like probably experience with a lot of losses. And so they're afraid like, oh, every time I'm in a profit, this will end up in a loss. And therefore I have to immediately close the profit. And they close profits way too early. Like I think that's probably even more the case of traders, that they close trades way too early. How can they, like, how do we deal with is it just making rules, or
it's partly making rules, but how do you stay true to those rules?
Mm-hmm.
That piece that gets mostly in the way for traders. And that's why the rules have to be something that is informed by the self-awareness. I have a tendency, if a trader says, I have a tendency to get out of a trade too early, well, that means there's something that hits them and makes them scared. So I wouldn't recommend you do this during the trade itself, but afterwards, notice, wow, I got really scared today. What was that about? Go and revisit that feeling in your body. Take the metaphoric elevator from your head to your body, recreate that scenario, and see if you can feel with the feelings of that fear, because something got triggered in that moment. What is it? And sometimes it has nothing to do with that day's profits, but an old trigger, an old experience of not feeling safe under a challenging situation. And that could be just what's getting kicked off each time you don't stay in the trade long enough, because that old part of you feels unsafe staying still, unsafe with any kind of loss, even a appropriate risk size loss. That's why we have to get curious about how we are reacting so that we can eventually be a person who responds. Oh, there's that fear again, but I've surfed it 6 times outside of my trading. So now, just like a big wave surfer, you don't start with like 50-foot waves. You start with a 2-foot wave, a 4-foot wave, right? You work your way up, and then you can be an observer of yourself and be like, oh, there I am. I really want to take this trade off, but I know that's just an old experience I'm responding to, and I'm going to be okay even if this loss happens, because I have an appropriate size risk, and loss is not going to kill me.
It's interesting. I experience also with myself, but also with, again, many in the trading rooms, that you open a trade, you put your stop loss, and you calculate that if it goes into the stop loss, you have 1% loss. And you deal with that. It's okay. This is what you agreed on. This is your trading plan. It's 1% loss. And now the trade goes in your direction. And let's say you're 1% in profit now. And it's interesting that now if the trade goes again into your stop loss, it's much more painful because you saw the profit already.
Yep.
And in the beginning, if the trade would go directly against you with 1% loss and into stop loss, you wouldn't have any problem. But because you saw already a profit, now it's much more painful.
No. And that's, again, physiology, biology. Daniel Kahneman talks about this in his work as well. The key is what is happening is you've already become attached to what you are considering your money.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it's so important to realize that this is not about your money. It's about being a trader.
Yes, I feel like this is extremely difficult for many people, because this is like, and I can, somehow, actually, I less have a problem with that, but I can understand the problem. Like I feel with them when I see it, that it's happening.
It physically hurts, though. Losing physically hurts. And that is what traders have to get. Their physiology. We are built to survive on the Serengeti. So all of the system is not yet up to speed on this is not a physical threat. This is just a financial threat. Your head, your physiology does know the difference. It's responding like you're going to be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. So you have to reconcile with the fact that your lizard brain is thousands of years old. It's not going to be logically talked out of its experience. You're going to have to learn how to surf what your body has been. Why are we at the top of the food chain? Because of that. It kept us alive. It kept us safe. We don't want to make it wrong, but we have to see that that is not going to help you as a trader. So you're going to have to learn how to waltz and tango around it, because you can't make it just stop undone.
Yeah, so it's crazy how our brain is not built for trading. No, it's built on on, on very primer instincts often. We have here also a comment from one of the viewers, and he's asking a questions. I just joined. I noticed a pattern in my trading. I have a profitable month. The following month often ends in a loss. That's because success makes me overconfident, which leads to less focus and more mistakes. On the other hand, when I experience a losing month, I get upset, but become more focused and disciplined. While that might seem like a good thing, it's creating a repeating cycle that I want to break.
Yeah. So it's possible that that trader's sense of value is tied to his profit and his loss. And again, if our sense of value is tied to external factors, we are always going to be jerked around. We're going to be feeling good about ourselves when we win and bad about ourselves when we lose. How do you become a trader who is feeling good about themselves if they stay true to their strategy, regardless of whether it was a green day or not? How do you become a trader who is true to the strategy and doesn't beat himself up if it just didn't work that day? That means you possibly are coming from a place of trying to see confidence based on external evidence, and that cannot go the distance. It has to come from within, not because you're winning or losing, but because you were true to your strategy. So I would say if you aren't being true to your strategy and your moods are dictating how you trade, then you're not trading, you're gambling.
Yes, okay. Wow. This is and you are actually also saying that you should get your validation not from your P&L, right?
Right. A lot of traders are seeking their validation from their P&L, and that their P&L isn't actually becoming a measurement of their strategies or their risk, but of their self-esteem. And you cannot put your self-esteem, expect to feel good from your P&L. You're going to have to be able, but this happens a lot again for men. Men have been taught that their value is tied to what they produce, right? What they create.
Mhm.
And so it's hard to untangle those two, but it's very necessary because you're like a dog on a leash if you don't get that pulled off. Your sense of value, your sense of worthiness, and again, that often goes back to childhood. Often, if children aren't seen and given love, uh, but you get straight A's in school and then you get some attention, well, you know what? I'm going to always get straight A's in school because at least I'm being seen now. And then we take that with us into everything we do. We say, oh, I have to work hard for this love. But that even internally sometimes is what shows up. I'm only going to love myself if I win. I'm only going to love myself and see my value if I get a green year, quarter, decade. It's like, no, you have value and you want to have a sense of respect for yourself for trying.
So I actually heard this very often, but what you're saying is contradiction this a little bit. There are many traders that they say, if you made a nice profit, make it real and give yourself a nice treat. Like go to a holiday or buy yourself a new watch or do something, But you're saying that could be also a problem because then you're dealing only with you give yourself based on the P&L, you give yourself treats, right?
I think we just have to be very conscious of how the reward system is going to work for you. There are ways to acknowledge yourself, but it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to. If you beat the living daylights out of yourself during a red or drawdown or quarter or month, I want people to really get that beating the hell out of themselves is just the polar opposite of I'm the man. It's just the opposite side of the coin, heads or tails. What we need to do is how do you treat yourself if you stay true to your strategy that day, even though it's a red day? That might be the day you go and reward yourself. I had a brutal day, I lost, but I was true to my strategy. And I am proud of myself for that because it was hard and I stuck to it. That's the day to reward yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetarily, although it can be. But it's a matter of seeing that your value has to come from within. You cannot seek it externally without then being dependent on the external all the time. That's
Because
the
the external is not in our it's not in our control. Only the internal is our control, right?
Correct.
So we have to reward what we can control, and not what we can't control. Yeah.
Correct. 100%. 100%.
Look, this is an absolute amazing show, and we are already coming to the end, and you gave us so much food of thoughts. It's unbelievable. Really, I don't know how to thank you. We have 2 minutes left. Maybe you might share what, first and foremost, I shared the link of you in the chat so people can check it out and contact you also. What kind of books would you recommend? What are your favorite books? Let's put it like that.
I mean, I would recommend one of the books that I wrote because I think it's a powerful look at how what the best practices are of how to become a better trader. This is a book that features some incredible, successful traders that I've, been very lucky to. Some of them I've worked with, and some of them are, interviewed for this book, from Jack Kellogg to Jason Shapiro. They're all Brian Lee. Who else is in that book? Mari is in that book. That book is called The 5 Practices to Become a Better Trader. It's an ebook, so it's 25 pages. It's completely free, but it's going to walk you through what I call are my 5 practices. And these are 5 practices that the traders speak to, how they themselves utilize these practices in their own trading. And those 5 practices are self-responsibility, learning how to take ownership for whatever shows up in your life, self and other empathy, learning how to have empathy for yourself. You guys are taking on the hardest job in the world. Cut yourself a break once in a while, and it's difficult, right? A willingness to be with feelings is practice 3. And then seeing yourself as the hero of this journey. Trading is the best school of enlightenment out there. It's going to force you to be with all the ways you lie to yourself. Embrace that. Become self-aware. See yourself as the hero on this adventure. And practice 5 is practice self-awareness. Start to be an observer of yourself, not a judge. Most people judge themselves all the time. No, be a person who observes yourself. Oh my God, look at how I respond to so-and-so, or how I get triggered by that, or how this doesn't bother me when it bothers everybody else. Become an observer of yourself so that you can stay curious and learn about how you're triggered so that you can potentially do something less costly the next time.
Thank you so much, Kiman. We are already at the end of our session. I shared, by the way, also the link to your book, so I hope the viewers are checking it out. I definitely will. It was a pleasure. I hope it wasn't the last time, and I wish you a wonderful evening.
So much. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And your whole team, thanks to all of you too.
Thanks so much.
Okay.